Okay, this week it's time for the 2025 Athlean X review, or recap, I should say, not review, because reviews are for the Athlean X programs I do. So, the AX Live 2025 recap. So, we'll start off. I do the MVP package, which is the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. They have an all-star package. That's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So I did the all-star package my first time way back in 2019. So of course I don't have like necessarily reviews for 2019, 2022 or 2023 because didn't really necessarily get into like making these videos until probably about 3 or 4 years ago or so. So but anyway, with the 4-day package and everything, what it does, you go from the All Star package up to the MVP package. It opens up that Thursday, which is pretty much one-on-one training. So we basically go to the Rough House gym down in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and we basically get the whole day worth of one-on-one training, and it's worth more than its weight in gold. So it's definitely worth the extra few $100s that you're going to pay for the ticket to get that extra day and everything. So, because getting one-on-one training with top people in the industry, you in person, you really can't put a price on that. So in the morning, what we did is like usual, we broke into two groups because there was a good 50, 60 of us and everything. So we had two groups. So one group went in for instance, my group, we started off with going over a blood flow restriction with Jeff himself. So what it does, what blood flow restriction is, you take a band or something and you wrap it across your arm, and then you're sitting there doing a bicep curls or something, and the idea of a blood flow restriction is that you're restricting the blood flow to your muscles, so it has to work that much harder and everything. Now you don't want to get too tight to the point of a tourniquet or whatever and cut it off completely. You're just restricting the flow. So that's what we did in the first group, and of course here my cat comes and he wants to hear all about it too. So he's here to kind of hear all about the recap as well, and to tell you hey, if you haven't gotten into it yet, you need to. Yeah, you're always the star of the show, aren't you? So that was the first, in a sense, a station, or the first concept we went over. Then my group, we switched. The other group that went second with Jeff. We went then second with Ben Patrick, the knees over toes guys. So knee over toe guy. He is known for sissy squats and stuff like that and everything. So we actually got to in a sense get a one-on-one leg training with him. And so of course he's a big, he's become kind of popular with being knees over toes guys, and of course a lot of times people are sissy squats and they dismiss the whole idea and everything. So you don't necessarily want to dismiss stuff right off the bat just because, oh well, it doesn't fit in my training program. What you want to do is keep your mind open and be okay, is this something I can incorporate now? No. Okay, is it something I could incorporate in the future? Yes. Okay, I'll put it on the back burner for now, but I'll keep it in the back of my mind to kind of look forward to it down the road and everything, to maybe quite possibly get into it maybe when I get older or something. So it's always, just even if you don't necessarily do it right now, it's always a good idea to keep stuff in the back of your mind for future reference in case you do need it and everything. So just look at it as tools in the toolbox and everything. So you wouldn't necessarily just keep all hammers or all screwdrivers and nothing else in your toolbox. You want to keep screwdrivers, hammers, and maybe saws and nails and divots, everything. So that way you have what it takes to if something, one of those odd jobs does pop up, you have the tools that you're going to be able to kind of pivot and be able to do that job that's at hand and everything. So that was our morning session. So we then broke for lunch and everything, and had a good an hour or so for lunch, and kind of hang out and everything. And then in the afternoon, we actually got the two people that we got was Glover Teixeira. one of the former light heavyweight MMA champions. He was able to, he ran us through like a conditioning workout, and then we also had Mike Boyle, who is known for unilateral training for legs, and of course he has the pretty much the exact opposite viewpoint of like Ben Patrick. And so now, of course, most people are like, well, you got two people that have opposite viewpoints, and so like they, one's right and one's wrong. You can't be both right. Again, it's like you kind of have to look at like your position and what you're getting into, like and kind of take like for instance, like with, now, like I said with Ben Patrick, like okay, well, not necessarily what I'm into right now, so I'm going to go with Mike Boyle and his training and everything. So, but I'm going to keep Ben Patrick stuff and kind of in my back pocket for future reference, or vice versa. So it's always good to kind of see the opposing viewpoints too, so you can sit there. Okay, well, these two are on the opposite ends of the spectrum and everything. They're not necessarily wrong, either one of them, but chances are, like a lot of us, like myself included, might fall somewhere in between. So like and of course you might one day maybe use like techniques from Ben Patrick, and then like the next leg day session you might use like techniques from Mike Boyle and everything. So there's different approaches that you can use using these two opposing viewpoints and everything. So again, you don't necessarily want to be dogmatic in your approach and everything. So in the afternoon, like my group went first with Glover Teixeira and going through the conditioning program, and of course like how it worked is like we had like 4 lines or whatever, and so like I was started off in the front line or whatever, and we'd sit there shadow box. Yes, you ready to get going? Yeah, yeah. Are you gonna sit there? Yeah, yeah. You're interrupting the video. Oh yes. Yeah, you just want attention. So we like 30 seconds, like sitting there shadow box, and then we went to the back, had 30 seconds rest, and then we did like in a sense like burpees, and then we like did like shadow box, and then we did squat thrust, and back to the front line to like a shadow box, and then did about 3 rounds of that, and then we like mixed up the type of exercises. Like still shadow boxing in the front, but then we go to the back and maybe do like a squat thrust, and then rest, and then do like burpees, then mixing it up and everything to do the conditioning. Yes, I know. You're so excited about all this training, aren't you? Yes. Yeah, you're trying to learn so you can chase your brother around all every night, huh? Yes. What's going on, huh? Yeah, you just want attention. So that's the conditioning that we did, and of course, like my group went second with Mike Boyle going over, like I said, the unilateral training for leg training. So now the difference between like bilateral and unilateral, for instance, like the stereotypical bilateral like exercise for lower body is the squat. Now like unilateral training would be stuff like your like split squats, your Bulgarian split squats, like your reverse lunges, forward lunges, where you're pretty much only using one leg, hence unilateral. Bilateral is hence 2 legs and everything. So, and like you and like went over like the whole like yes, ready, off you go. Yeah, we did go over like kind of like the percentages and kind of like the charts and like not necessarily charts, but kind of like how you could like use percentage, like okay, like you're able to do this much with like your barbell squat, you can then maybe be able to the equivalent of doing this with like a single leg lunge or a single leg split squat or something like that. And so like I'm throwing numbers out there, but like say 175 pounds on like a split squat is the equivalent of like 320 pounds or something. It's that kind of concept and everything, where like you can kind of like incorporate that and kind of be like, okay, well, this is how much I can do with this barbell squat. Okay, then I can kind of guesstimate, okay, I can do this, and get yourself to be able to progress that in just a different way and everything. So that was the MVP day. Now the All-Star day on Friday, we started off like with like in a sense 3 stations or whatever. So we broke up into 3 different groups, So like my group, we started off with doing like in a sense like being introduced to yoga. Now it's something that I was introduced to like 7 8 years, at least 7 8 years ago. In the past couple of years, I've kind of gotten away from it somewhat and everything, but it's like kind of like a good refresher. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, this is this stuff that like and this is why we want to do it type of deal. So we ended up like doing like a kind of like yoga flow and kind of like a stretching, how like stuff like that. And then we, from that first station, we then rotated to go like first off, before we rotated, as I try to get my thoughts in order because there's so much we went over and everything. uh, the women that like actually ran through us yoga, the yoga classes, apparently like one of them like was filming for like one of Jeff's new programs, Savage and everything, or like the incorporating the yoga and stuff. So uh, he brought her on to kind of go through that, so that way all of us can have like a good introduction to that. Now, second station, Sweet Burns is here again, so we went over like pretty much like bench, and then like bench techniques, and then we went briefly over squat techniques because we kind of crunched for time. So like we did spend quite a bit on like the bench press techniques and everything, and then we touched upon the squat techniques and everything, what you kind of want to look for and like your cues and stuff. Yes, you're back for more attention. Yes, and you're back to become part of this video. So yes, yes, say hi and be like, yes, I know, I need so much attention. Yeah. So that was our second station, going over bench and squat techniques with like Swede Burns. Then our third station, we actually got to go over mace training, mace bell training. So for instance, like pretty much like taking like mace bells or like clubs and like hammers and stuff like that, and going over that type of training. And that's something else that I was introduced probably about like 5 years ago or so. And like I mean, I do have like a 15-pound club and like a 15-pound like hammer that like I can use for that. Like I mean, like I said, I was introduced to it like a good 5 years ago. Like I really don't do like the hammer training with the 15-pound hammer I got, because my excuse is like with having 10 by 10 foot room, I don't necessarily have the room to do it and everything, but I could always just take it outside. But I do have that club and everything. So, and the whole concept with stuff like that is to, like for your shoulder mobility and kind of like your joint health. And so what you can take from that is, in a sense, do stuff like that to kind of bulletproof your shoulders and everything. So that's like why you'd want to incorporate like a mace training. So those were the three stations we went over in the first half of the day, or the morning. We broke for lunch, and then we got back, and we had Allie Gilbert as the speaker. That she ran a presentation pretty much on like men's health, and like she's like sharing some stats and everything, and like on pretty much like the decline of like levels of testosterone in men these days. And like one of the stats that she shared, which is kind of depressing, is that like over the last 40 years, testosterone levels have gone down by like 40%. So they've gone down on average like 1% every year. And the test for blood tests, and a lot of the companies now have shifted their normal levels down over the past years, which is kind of like, okay, so now you can technically still be in the normal range nowadays, which would have been like maybe lower levels 40 50 years ago. So that's kind of like a disturbing trend and everything, that like we everyone should be like kind of like, okay, well, how like aware of, and so how can we change that. And so that ultimately, pretty much as individuals, it like rely like it falls on us. Like for instance, like I only have control over myself. So like what I can do, like, okay, well, I lift, I take care of my cardiovascular health too, doing sprints and stuff like that, working my VO2 max. I make sure I'm eating as healthy as possible, and like which kind of is now second nature after doing this for like perhaps like 10 years now, again back into it for 10 years now. So those are the stuff we need to do. Testing does come in handy, so that way we can get data points and we can kind of make adjustments, like just like getting your yearly physical and like going to the dentist and everything. This is just another thing that we need to get into. So that's like pretty much how we ended like the afternoon. Jeff did take some questions and stuff, kind of like to round out the day and everything. We then went over the the course for the competition, and of course, like those of us who have been there for years, like it's like it wasn't no surprise to us because like it really hadn't changed. But like went over it more so for like the people that had just their first year, so like still level 1, 2, and extreme, and for both men and women. So that's pretty much how Friday went. Saturday, of course, was the competition, and so like we ran through the whole competition, and we started all of us started competing at about 10 o'clock, and it took us until probably about like 2:30, 3 o'clock to get all of us to be able to run through and everything. And so like it was like a great competition. So like as of this recording, if the results aren't up in the portal for the athleanx.com, they will be shortly and everything. So like I haven't checked it. Like I'm recording this on the day before I release it. So like this last I checked, the results for 2025 are still not up, but like they should be in there within the next at latest the next week or two. So you can go check those out and everything. So that was Saturday. And then we rounded out the Sunday with like a keynote speaker, and of course Jeff spoke this year, and he went over like longevity and like because the whole theme of this was pretty much legacy in motion. And so that kind of begs the question, like, what kind of legacy are you leaving? So sharing like a lot of stats and everything, and like information on like why you want to lift and everything, because there's like a bunch of like a graph he showed with scales and stuff like that. The sedentary life, muscle function pretty much like plummeted, and then like average lifestyle was like only like a slightly better, like probably about like 45-degree angle instead of like a 30-degree angle type of deal. Instead of going like pretty much like straight down or whatever with the sedentary lifestyle, average lifestyle was less, and active was like even less muscle loss, function loss, and of course like that was like someone who's active, probably someone like 3 or 4 days a week or something. But then you want to consider like, okay, well, if you're someone like me who's active at least 5 or 6, who's I should say not just active, but like working out intensely 5, 6 days a week, that is flattens the curve even more. And so the reason why you want to do this is like stuff like lifting and like sprints and increase your VO2 max, and but mainly lifting and everything is because one of the stats that like was showing that like deaths from falling has increased quite, like I think it was 30-40%, that like 35-40% that it shared like over like a 10-year period from 2006 or 2017 or something like that. So it's stuff like that's on an increase. And so like the reason why you and how you can combat that is like reason why you want to lift is to combat that, because with lifting you're in a sense at least maintaining your muscle mass. So like if you do fall, you have enough strength to be able to catch yourself. You also want to be able to have that balance, the stabilization and coordination, and like to be able to do that as well. So that was pretty much like the keynote speaker that we had for Sunday, and we went over the good old award ceremony as well before that. So that's how we ended up like rounding out the good old Athlean-X 2025. So I'm sure most people aren't going to like take advantage of like, oh hey, look, this is what this is all about, let me get into it for 2026 and everything. So if you're someone like me who like never heard like had gotten into it, and like it took a couple years to kind of actually get into like going, I'd say don't wait a couple of years. Like start getting ready now and go for 2026 and everything, because like I said at the beginning of this and everything, going down to the event is it's well worth the money, and like you're going to be like rewarded probably like tenfold in friendships you make, the knowledge you learn, plus like the competition and everything is well worth it. So it's more than worth the money that you're going to be spending going down and everything for that trip. So like this is the recap of like the 2025 Athlean X Live event, and so I'm pretty much going to be doing this yearly now, because my plan is to pretty much be going down every year. So look forward to next year's review of AX 2026 and everything. So, and here is the cat coach telling you to get like make sure you make it next year. Yes, I want to see you down there. Yeah, you tell him. Tell him that you need to be down there next year. Yes. So here we are signing off on our recap